Good morning. I'm very honored to share some remarks to the members of the ROTC graduating class in the University of Wyoming, where I went. I usually use a podium, but today I'm sitting ensconced in a chair at a low level, and I'll be throwing papers over the edge as I've finished my remarks because I do use notes. Don't forget to use notes. Anyway, when I was in 1945, I was in junior high or high school in Laramie and Cody, but people came from Laramie from ROTC. They were either going over to World War II or coming back, and they often, to impress Brother Pete and me, they would wear their ROTC uniforms. Well, Peter and I were very impressed by that. We were quite enthused by that, and that's where we picked up the thread of it. And then I joined ROTC in 1950 as a freshman, and we drilled in the old field house, and that was tripping around in the dirt, mind you. That was what was inside the field house. And many of those old friends of ROTC days and Army days are gone. As I approach my 90th year, many of them have croaked. It's a term of definition. But one of my great chums in ROTC and in the Army was Charlie Wing. Now, he's on your wall down there. Charlie Wing became the Adjutant General of the Wyoming Army National Guard, one of the high positions. And when he was overseas, he even flew around. And one day they assigned me to run some mail to Heidelberg. And I said, well, who's in that little junk shop over there in that little plane? He said, Lieutenant Wing. I said, I remember him. Anyway, we also played ball together at the University of Wyoming. He was a starter, and I was number 10 on the squad. And so they list the statistical columns, and my name was listed as others. And so they called me Others Simpson. I didn't make many points that year. So I was commissioned in 1954 in June. And the person who pinned those first Louis bars on me was one Ann Schroll from Grable, Wyoming, very fair princess, who is still with me, and we will celebrate our 67th year anniversary on June 21st of this year. So off we were, but waiting for our orders, I worked for the building and grounds at the university on the garbage detail. You know, it wasn't a bad job. It was $250 a month and all you could eat. No, I don't mean that way. I'm facetious. We don't say that. So I reported to Fort Benning, Georgia in November of 54 for the basic infantry officer course, and then shipped off in April of 55 to serve in the 10th Infantry Regiment of the Red Diamond Division, the 5th Division. Then I was later transferred in Germany to the 12th Armored Infantry Battalion of the 2nd Armored Division, which was called Hell on Wheels. And we served them up pretty good, but there was no combat, but we were ready for the Ruskies when they came. So then I came back to Laramie and was on the GI Bill and got my degree then in 58. And, I was trained well in both infantry and armor, not armor too much. But when I look at the list of your graduating cadets, I see Katie Dietz, who's been selected to serve in the armor branch and is the first Wyoming female cadet to ever be selected to serve in armor. And I see others are involved with armor, and one of your graduates, James Spear, has been detailed to the infantry, and he served as your cavalry battalion commander this year. His father, Chris Spear, served me with extraordinary distinction as a member of my premier staff when I served in the United States Senate. And he's gone on to great things too. A marvelous man. Now, I do keep track of you. I get the cowboy battalions and stuff, and I send a few bucks. Anyway, my colonel in the 10th Infantry Regiment was Arthur S. Collins, Jr. He was a full colonel in 55, so I knew he was headed somewhere. And then, of course, he was a retired Major General when I got to Washington, and I found that he was terminally ill. I went to pay my respects to him, and he said to me, he said, I saw the qualities of leadership that you had based on ROTC in Laramie, and I see that they have been attained. Well, we had a great visit, wonderful discussion of the Army and leadership, and what a tremendous mentor he was to me. Well, I had tears in my eyes when I left that one. And it's all about leadership. That's what I'm going to be talking about. And what you're doing is leading. So I think leadership is tough to describe, but it's sure easy to witness. And I think, what was it? Was this in the Supreme Court of the United States? One of the justices, they were listening to a case on pornography, and he said, "Well, you'll know it when you see it," which is probably the best thing about that. But you'll know it when you see leadership. It's always about taking a risk. Sometimes it's about going against the grain. I learned leadership in the Army and in ROTC. I would often make a proposal to commanding officers, and they would have doubts about what I was suggesting to them about, say, for training or something, or tactics. And they'd say, "But Captain, I want to tell you, I intend to take full responsibility for this." They'd get alert, you know. Well, that would get their attention. And then they'd say, "Oh, you will you? You're going to take full responsibility." And that got their attention, and then they would say, "Well, press on." And there's a wonderful couplet about that. It's called "Press On." It says, "Nothing in this world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common when unsuccessful people with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent." That slogan, "Press On," has solved many of the problems of the human race. Now, you know, then I found leadership helped me greatly in politics. You do know that I dabbled in politics. You're aware of that. And, you know, I had some serious times and some deadly times, but you know the difference between a horse race and a political race? In a horse race, the entire horse runs. Now, you want to think about that for a minute. You'll go home and think, what is he saying about that? Another great story was a couple of guys in a balloon, and they looked down. There's an old farmer down there. He said, "Where are we?" The farmer looked up and he said, "You're in a balloon." And they looked at each other and they said, "Who was that?" He said, "Must have been a politician. He gave us the right answer, but he didn't tell us a damn thing." And then, of course, the Greeks gave us the great word democracy, democracy. And that word is politics. The word poly meaning many, and ticks meaning blood-sucking insects. Now that's enough of that. We're now going to go back to that page, and I'm going to throw that page away. These notes from the podium. Don't ever let people distort who you are. You take your lumps, suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, but don't ever forget. Never let them distort who you are. If you're working on immigration and they call you a bigot, if you're working on anything or veterans issues and they call you anti-veteran, I have said, you got to put your money on the guys who have been in the combat theater and not some guy who has been in Camp Beetle Bailey and working in headquarters company and doesn't know a mortar tube from either end. But that's another story. I get in a lot of trouble on that. Never, 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 ever fail to face an attack unanswered, because then they'll think it's agreed to. And the people who are telling you not to do it are the people who love you the most. You can't do that. You can't get down on their level. And I say, well, watch this. Anyway, leadership is about hard choices. You have to do your homework. You get to know more than the guys who babble into the vapors and look very impressive, but they haven't done their homework. They are using on you emotion, fear, guilt, and racism. And I tell you, I had to learn the hard way in the U.S. Senate. People who don't know anything will use emotion, fear, guilt, and racism. And you have to then refute them with facts. And then you have to repair and prepare and prepare and repair to your studies and your vision and repair for yourself. And everybody is entitled to their own opinion, but no one is entitled to their own facts. And so you prepare and then you do your best and then some. As Harry Truman once said, the world is run by C students. You don't have to be a wizard to be a leader, but you have to make up for any lack of that. You have to make that up, that lack with dogged determination. You have to, and guts and energy and spirit and good humor. Don't forget, my mother taught me that humor is the universal solvent against the abrasive elements of life. And it is. And it sure drives other people crazy. If you saw the movie Lincoln, someone said, is he going to go in there and tell some of those damn parables and stories, these horrible things? Yeah, he is. And that's how he disarmed people. Anyway, leaders almost must be fair and firm and above all loyal. And you're going to have situations where someone you totally trusted and they violate their confidence in you or you in them, and you must stay loyal. That's the big L word. And, we're just not here on earth to ask and receive. We have to give in order to get. You must have integrity. If you don't have integrity, nothing else matters. And if you don't have integrity, nothing else matters. And always have a deep faith in yourself. And yes, have another faith in some higher being, whatever that is to you. Abe Lincoln, who was not a military leader, but he campaigned and took care of the campaign of the North. And General Ike Eisenhower, who led the invasion of Europe on D-Day, had great faith, as did Lincoln. And folks who don't have that never quite get it together. You have to know where to turn when you don't know where to turn. You've learned that. I know that sounds pretty corny, but you'll have to learn that one by yourself. It's a truth, and I am not preaching here. So a leader is a believer in something higher, a believer in his country or her country, a believer in people, a believer in truth and ethics and morality, and a believer in his or her own self. I learned a lot about life in politics, best described by me as a fine, thoughtful opinion. In politics, there are no right answers, only a flow of compromises among groups, resulting in a changing, cloudy, and ambiguous series of public decisions where appetite and ambition compete openly with knowledge and wisdom. That's all there is. Now, finally, never forget the risk factor. Let me share a definition with you. This, of course, is the dilemma. And it is this. The dilemma is this. To laugh is to risk appearing a fool. To weep is to risk appearing sentimental. To reach out for another is to risk involvement. To expose feelings is to risk rejection. To place your dreams before the crowd is to risk ridicule. To love is to risk not being loved in return. To go forward in the face of overwhelming odds is to risk failure. But risks must be taken, because the greatest hazard in life is to risk nothing. The person who risks nothing, does nothing, has nothing, is nothing. He or she may avoid suffering and sorrow, but he or she cannot learn, can't feel, can't change, can't grow, or can't love. Chained by his or her certitudes, he or she is a slave. He or she has forfeited his or her freedom. Only a person who takes risk is free. My grandfather said to me, I can't tell you how to succeed, but I can sure as hell tell you how to fail, and that's to try to please everybody. Now that'll work for me, it did for me. And another one, if you're damned if you do, and damned if you don't, then do. Think about that one for a minute. And this is not in the leadership manual, but try to have an amiable companion at your sides. It makes all the difference. You come home after a horrible day and share with your someone, either in Shakespearean prose or lyrical profanity, and that will settle you down. And now, for you, get on to your next duty station. The world needs more cowboys and more cowgirls. And be safe. The world needs you, and God bless you. Go out. Go forth. Not fifth, but fourth. Take care of yourselves. Love you.